we're joined by Steve Grove, Commissioner of Employment and Economic Development for the state of Minnesota, and Mary Grove, Managing Partner at Bread and Butter Ventures. Now, Steve and Mary, you have a super interesting story that I love because it parallels my own story of being in tech and startups in the Bay Area and having, I think, the anchor spouse, the boomerang spouse who is from Minnesota, and maybe campaigning the reluctant non-Minnesotan spouse to move back to the Midwest. And I'd love to hear your story about, you guys were in the Bay Area for over 15 years, working for companies like YouTube and Google. What was going on in your life that you decided that Minnesota might be the next best step?
Sure. Well, thanks, Casey, for having us on. And congratulations on another amazing Twin Cities Startup Week, or Startup Month, I should say. We're super excited to be here to share a little bit of our perspective and experience, and specifically the how and the why of how we got here. So Steve is a proud Minnesota native from Northfield, Minnesota. And I actually was born in Iowa, so also have roots in the Midwest, but I grew up in California and lived most of my life there. And so we've been together for the last 10 years. And as many of you probably know, if you marry a Minnesotan, you learn a lot about the state. And they have a huge sense of pride and enthusiasm for what Minnesota has to offer. So we always we loved our life out in Silicon Valley. We loved the work we were doing at Google was very meaningful. But we always were intrigued by this idea that, at some point, this home base, this could be a phenomenal home base. But Steve never pressured me or lobbied me, really. It was we got to this point in our lives where we thought professional and personal opportunities aligned really well. On the personal front, we had just had our twins, who were about one at the time that we moved. They're now 3.5, and felt like this would be an amazing place to be part of a community, to help build community, to build our family. And then professionally, some interesting opportunities aligned where we thought about, where's the future of the innovation economy going to be written? And we didn't necessarily think that it's limited to or even centered in Silicon Valley and places like it. So I had an opportunity to take a new role where I started venture investing full time, but based here in Minnesota for a venture firm, Revolution, on the Rise the Rest seed fund. And that was actually the aha moment for us was, should we do this? And we actually decided very quickly, and it's been a really great chapter since then.
You bring up such a good point of this intersection of livability and then professional opportunity. And Steve, I feel like you had this amazing professional opportunity that really tied together a lot of your interests and past experience. So you are an executive at Google, but you have a master's in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School. So what was that experience making the decision, because you didn't have the position of the Commissioner of Deed when you moved here? What was your experience getting here, looking for opportunities that combine that experience and interest? And then how did the Commissioner of Deed position manifest itself?
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I think like a lot of things in life, it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of timing and a little bit of opportunity. But I think this is the kind of market where those things can come together, and there's a whole host of different directions that you can take your career. You're right. I was in technology, loved working for Google. It's a great company. Brought that job with me when I moved here. But I'd always been interested in public service and what might be possibilities to give back to my home state here in Minnesota. And so got involved a little bit in the election of 2018. And when our current governor, Tim Walz, won that election and came into office, he was looking for somebody to come in and lead our economic development department. And the opportunity to come in and help grow Minnesota's economy, particularly grow our innovation economy, which we think is really on the rise and is full of potential, but requires a lot of different people coming together to make it grow. The idea of going into government and helping our state focus on that, on how we can make this truly a hub and a center, not just for startups, although that's certainly been a big part of our focus, but also just for innovative businesses in a whole host of different stages of their growth, was just a really interesting opportunity, and something that I thought, you know what, if we're gonna open up this new chapter, pick up our lives, move here with our 2-year-old twins and start something new, why not try a new role as well? So a lot's happened since then. Obviously, we focused on challenges far beyond the startup ecosystem, but I think it's been really fun to try on a new hat in a new state. And, it's the kind of market where it's big enough that you can make a big impact, but it's small enough that you can get to know people pretty quickly. And we came here pretty fresh, not knowing a ton of folks really, but, we're able to talk to folks and learn about opportunities, and the chance to make a new type of impact here was just really an exciting opportunity for us.
I love the direction that Deed is going. And I think Deed is it through Deed that we're rolling out like broadband internet throughout the entire state of Minnesota? So
Yeah,
that,
it is. Yeah. We have a whole host of efforts to grow the state's economy, but a big one of them is just getting the state connected. We have around 90% of the state has sort of serviceable internet, but that extra 10% is challenging because it's in more rural parts of the state. And we know that startup founders and entrepreneurs and businesses and talent are spread across Minnesota. So we put a bunch of grant money into the market to help telecoms dig new broadband lines, get that access to communities across the state. We started a new program called Launch Minnesota, which brings grants to educational organizations that help startups get moving more quickly, that actually provides focused innovation grants to really early stage startups to make that leap, take that risk of starting something new, provides things like health insurance and childcare, early R&D money and the like. So we're trying to have government be a new player in this, not a leading player. It's always going to be the innovators in our economy that make these ecosystems grow, venture capitalists, startups, what have you. But government has a role both in showing this is the kind of state where we want startups to come and grow, but also provide the infrastructure like broadband, like these grant programs that create kind of a nice platform and an ecosystem for growth to be possible.
and I love that right now, because as people are looking for, especially our fly-in participants who are maybe living in really expensive coastal cities and they maybe don't want to move to another city. Maybe they do want to have that like lake life. I want to buy a lake house in northern Minnesota and run my company from my lake house. I was just up on the North Shore and the internet is so fast up there in these like tiny towns with like 2,000 people or less. So I love that, that opportunity to come to Minnesota and really live anywhere. And especially with the trends of, I think working from home is going to be a long tail trend, given COVID, and the fact that we've already as a state made so much investment in that, I think it really puts us ahead of other places as far as like accessibility, affordability, quality of life. So I was really excited when we moved here and I realized that this was like a really big project that the state was rolling out. Mary, I want to talk to you a little bit more. Steve touched on like how easy it is to get connected here. The community, I don't know if you could just share a little bit about your experience. Steve, at least you have your family here as kind of a touch point, but Mary, you really didn't know anybody moving to Minnesota, did you? And what's been your experience getting plugged in? Because now I would say you're super connected as, a key venture capitalist in the community, and I see you everywhere, like on tons of panels and participating in the community in many ways. So can you share a little bit about that journey?
Sure, and thanks for saying that. So my experience, I had a unique window into Minnesota, which was not a firsthand experience, but of course through Steve and our family, and also through our nonprofit. So we started a nonprofit together in 2013 called Silicon North Stars, which is about educating and inspiring youth from economically underserved backgrounds here in Minnesota towards futures in tech. And that's a program that we've been running, since we were living in Silicon Valley, but always had key roots to the community here. And I felt like through that peripheral lens, I knew enough about some of the accelerators that were popping up, the universities who were here, the sort of growth stage startups that were, knew a couple of the names of the investors and felt confident that there was, hey, there's a lot happening here. Let me just jump right in. And so coming here, I think with a national firm that brought outside resources in was a great way to enter and get to know the community a bit more. And as you've both alluded to, it's a very pay it forward place where you meet one person and everybody's, how can I help you? How can I introduce you to 3 more people? And it's been a very fast education, I think, but so much so that it's led me to, my current initiative, the new fund I'm working on with Brett Broll and Stephanie Rich is called Bread and Butter Ventures. And I've done the full 180, if you will, of being completely new to the ecosystem to having so much conviction that I have gone all in, and our fund is 100% focused on how do we build a world-class tier 1 destination fund where hopefully entrepreneurs from all around the world want to seek capital from us, but specifically from the Minnesota ecosystem. And that's the thesis we're pitching, is this Minnesota home field advantage, where we want to invest in the best companies anywhere in the world, even outside the United States, but always focus on leveraging the infrastructure that is unique to Minnesota. And we think that's the big three, right? Is food and ag tech, how we feed each other; health tech, how we take care of each other; enterprise software, how we work. And really, this is like the best kept secret, right? The strength of Minnesota. So I found it to be a really pretty invigorating experience. And I really believe that, and I encourage everyone who's thinking about it, double click on the opportunities that are here, because you may have heard a few different sectors here and there, but really one of the key strengths of Minnesota is the diversity of our economy. And it's totally different from Silicon Valley, a place I deeply love, is exceptional in one thing, and that's tech. And here you can really dabble in pretty much any sector, and it's diversification, right? It's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I don't know many other states that have such a diversity. You talked about food and ag and enterprise, but we have, retail tech and fintech, and the list goes on and on. Healthcare is a huge industry here. So there really is something for everybody to get plugged in. And I love you brought up the nonprofit that you founded, Silicon North Stars. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention like how much service is ingrained in the culture of Minnesota. I feel like volunteering and service to your community is something that Minnesotans take great pride in, and there's a lot of opportunity to get plugged in that way too. And of course, you guys took it one step further and created a whole nonprofit around it, which is super inspiring. And I had the opportunity to volunteer with you both last summer with the Silicon North Stars, and those kids were so much fun, and like just interacting with them was the best time. So
you were an awesome coach for your team, who I think was it the winning team?
They won, yes. Yeah. Reed Robinson and I coached the winners of the Silicon North Stars pitch competition. We're very proud of that.
You're right, Casey. I mean, this is not just the land of 10,000 lakes. It's the land of 10,000 nonprofits. There are a ton of organizations doing great work here. It's a state with the highest civic participation rates of any state in the country, the highest per capita donations from individuals to nonprofits of any state in the country. People here really care about and invest in the state that they're living in. And you can just feel that in the culture. The corporate community, which is incredibly strong, you've got some of the highest percentages of Fortune 500s of any metro area in the country, is also a very philanthropic community as well. Huge amounts of corporate giving. And so it does have a sense of togetherness. I mean, we're here in Minnesota, it's cold, we're in the middle of the country, we're taking care of each other, and there's that kind of spirit of paying it forward and working together that's really a great part of the state.
Yeah, and not only do we have a ton of nonprofits and corporate investments, but the state, I feel like, invests so much in public infrastructure. Personally, one of the reasons that I really wanted to move here was because of such a solid education system we have. Our schools are really well funded. We consistently rank like in the top, I think between us and Iowa, we're constantly in the top 2 public school systems. And so that brings me to my next question. Steve, you and Mary are parents to, I think, almost 4-year-old twins now.
Yeah.
Were they were under 2 when you moved to the Twin Cities. What has been the experience moving with kids to Minnesota?
Well, I suppose I'm biased since I grew up here, but I do think it's a great place to grow up. I think our kids are enjoying it as well. A big part of us was being close to family, which was an intangible thing that was, I guess, unique to our experience, having my parents and siblings here. But beyond that, it was about the idea of being able to send your kids to public school, which is something that's been a big priority of ours, and feeling like we could go to a state and neighborhood where we'd have great public schools. And that's true across so much of Minnesota. It's one of the best public school systems in the country. And then, you got the 4 seasons, so kids always have something fun to do. There's a lot, particularly in the metro area, for young kids to do. There's children's museums. There's some of the best parks in the country, tons of lakes and rivers and outdoor activities. There's a very unique thing we didn't know about even until we moved here called early childhood and family education, which is essentially free, or if you can afford it, low cost child education for your toddlers when you're very young, that includes parent education too. So it brings people together from all walks of life. Kids get to participate in this ECFE program, and parents get to talk to each other about what it's like to raise really little people. And with twins, we found that incredibly helpful to be able to learn with and commiserate with other parents as challenges that came up. And it's just it's part of that fiber of saying, hey, we're going to invest in our people in this state. We're going to invest in our talent all the way from, the ages of 1 or 2 up till college. And so we're, I think, really excited about the kind of place this is to raise kids. And, kids are getting into sledding and the outdoors and some of those things we didn't do in California, which are fun. They're memories that they'll have for their whole life.
And everything is so accessible here. Like our local elementary school is literally like 3 blocks away from our house, and there's a sledding hill in our neighborhood, and we have more parks per capita than any other state, I believe, or something along those lines. So yeah, it is really family friendly here, and I love that. Mary, you may have been born in the Midwest, but you grew up in San Diego. So not just California, but like beautiful, sunny, tropical paradise. Yes. So, just as like a last comment or suggestion, what advice do you have, or first of all, like how have you adapted to winters, and what advice do you have to anybody who's coming maybe from, California or somewhere warmer who is interested in moving here?
Adapting, which is a work in progress, is what I would say. But I think, and from the perspective of having young children, I'm so thrilled that we're raising them here from this age, because this is their norm and they love the snow. Our daughter was asking a couple weeks ago and it was 90. She's like, when is winter coming? I'm like, no. It can take its time. But the reality is, I think a good attitude, a willingness to learn new things, take advice, and just the life basics. My first winter was the polar vortex winter of 2019 or 2018. Last year was much milder, but I think, snow tires made a huge difference, understanding the right gear to have and not being, too proud to do things like go drive in the empty parking lot on the weekend, figure out how your car handles. There's a lot of just basic life stuff, but overwhelmingly, I think it's the right attitude. This year, my personal goal is to finally take up a winter sport, of which I have 0 skills currently. But I think it's, I'm told that if you can really find a way to be active and embrace that. But really, it's an attitude shift. And I think it is beautiful to have 4 seasons. I grew up with 1 season, albeit the best season. So it is good, just being up for challenge. And our kids love it. And, again, it's an adventure.
I want to learn how to cross country ski. So if you are down, we should totally do some classes.
I'm good with things that keep 2 feet on the ground. Personally, I'm not the most coordinated, as Steve will tell you. So sounds like a plan.
Let's do it. Well, Steve and Mary, it's such a delight as always to get to spend time with you. And I think you both bring such a unique perspective of how do you translate these really amazing global skills in tech to your local community and choose a community where you can make a big difference. And I definitely see both of you doing that here. So thanks for sharing your story. And I can't wait to spend more time seeing what you guys are going to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Casey.
Hopefully they edit the Osford out.
Good to chat with you. Bye.